Welcome back, everybody. This is episode 16 of Summer with the Stars, our final episode of the 2013 offseason. I'm Owen Newkirk, and we are very pleased to be joined by now second-year defenseman Patrik Nemeth, who's in Dallas right now, actually in the middle of training camp, his first NHL training camp with Dallas. And Patrik, you didn't get a chance to do it last year, which you would have expected to start your NHL training camp schedule a season ago, because of the lockout, which cut everything short. How different is it for you this year to be up in Dallas getting ready for their sort of preseason? Whether or not you end up staying there or heading down to Texas has to be a big change from starting in Cedar Park last year.
Yeah, well, it's not really that big of a difference because I was up here last year about a month before I went down to Austin and wasn't a training camp there, so I mean, it's not that big of a difference actually.
Now, I would imagine maybe even more so the big difference for you was just coming over here last year. You'd never played a game in pro hockey in North America, and then you came down, obviously started here in Texas and played the first half of the year before the lockout ended. How much of a transition was it for you? We've talked a lot about, especially with goaltending, it really messes with angles and the ice surface change. Was it as difficult for you as a defenseman as it was for a guy like Christopher Nilstorp?
I never played a goalie, so it's hard for me to really to know, but it is a big difference. Because you really think differently in Sweden how you play the game of ice hockey, because you want to play with a more puck possession, and you never really dump the puck there. I mean, the ice is a lot more smaller, and the pace is a lot faster. So it was a big difference to just to get into the system, if you know what I mean. It's when you get the puck, what do the coaches want me to do with it? So that was probably the biggest difference, how you really think the game.
Now, your fellow countryman Nilstorp said, and he was asked to do a very different role here, to get out and play the puck behind the net a lot more and be more active that way. He said in Sweden, they said, make the save, stay in the net, let everybody else go chase it. Is that pretty consistent with your experiences playing in Sweden, that the goalie really didn't venture out of his crease very much?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think the Swedish goalies or basically all European goalies are known for being good with the puck. Not to be one of those guys that just, I don't know. But yes, I mean, they don't really play so much outside of their crease in Europe, or especially in Sweden. So that must have been a big transition for him. And we talked about it too, and he said that. So yeah, I mean, it is a big difference.
How about for you as a defenseman? You're used to going back there to chase down a loose puck and not having the goalie out there, and then you start playing with Jack Campbell, who is very adept at that skill. And does it make it easier for you, or was that even an adjustment, just trying to get used to having a goalie go out there and move it?
In the beginning, I thought they were in my way a little bit, but then after a while, when I got used to it, I think it's really good, because it really makes the game a lot easier for the defenseman.
When you look back at last year, you started the season out. It was during the lockout. You were playing a lot with Jamie Alexiak as a pairing, and you had some pretty experienced defensemen playing in front of you as part of the six guys in the lineup. Was it beneficial, do you think, for you to be playing with Jamie, because the two of you were both rookies, both making your sort of transition into the North American pro game? Or do you think that was easier because you're both going through it at the same time?
Yeah, I mean, I think so a little bit, that if it's easier if we were two that going through the same phase, and I'm the only one. So I think that was good that I had another guy, and then I, like you said before, I had Nilstorp that also went through that phase. So I mean, I would say the first 10 or 15 games was a little bit up and down because of you weren't really used to the game. I mean, it is a totally different game. So some games you played really well. Some games you had your bumps. But I mean, after 10 or 15 games, I thought my game became a lot more efficient and a lot more consistent.
Well, you certainly turned a corner. You said you were a little uneasy to start the year, became very stable back there, and I thought really took a big step forward when the lockout ended, when guys like yourself and Alexiak were asked to take a bit bigger role on the blue line when you lost players like Dylan and Barker. Do you feel like that was a good time for the two of you, especially yourself, to have to grasp a bigger role on the blue line?
Yeah, I mean, because if they wanted me to take that role in the beginning of the season, maybe I wasn't really ready to take that role. But like you said, after I've been playing a little bit more game and got used to the game, I think I was ready when the opportunity came.
Now, last year, there were a couple of preseason games. I think 3. And then the season started. I've since talked to you and also to Christopher about how many preseason games. There's even a preseason tournament over in Sweden. Was that a bizarre sort of circumstance for you to have so few competitive games before the season started last year, as opposed to this year where you have a full NHL camp, and then if you don't make the Dallas roster, you have a couple preseason games in camp in Texas as well to kind of get ready?
Yeah. I mean, like you said, it was only 3 games, and I mean, when I played in the maybe that was why didn't I play so good? No, but when I played in Europe, or in Sweden, we had almost at least 10 games, I think, before the season started. So obviously you can get into game shape a little bit more and stuff like that. So I mean, there's no excuses this year because we played up in Traverse City too. So I mean, I should be really comfortable when the season starts.
It actually brings me to an interesting point. I want to talk a little bit more about Traverse City later, but you were playing at, I think you're probably your highest level of last year going into January and then into February, and you scored your first goal of your AHL career in February 12th against Houston, and I think it surprised, I don't know if you were surprised, but it kind of looked like it surprised everybody because you're not known for being the defenseman that just skates up and down everywhere, very much solid in your own zone. You have that offensive skill, but you tend not to highlight it as much as some. But you zipped right up the ice and fired one, kind of caught everybody off guard. Was that a pretty exciting moment for you?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a relief. I mean, it was probably around 40 games into the season, but I mean, I think I have. I know that my biggest role is probably to be solid defensively and all that, but I think I have a little an offensive upside too that I probably want to use a little bit more. Come in as a fourth guy and join the rush a little bit more. So I think that I have it in me. I just gotta get it out a little bit more.
Is that something that, working alongside a guy like Doug Lidster, who obviously had an incredible NHL career, is really beneficial for you? Because you could see that you have the skating skill and speed to be that kind of player. We just didn't necessarily see you pushing a lot. Not to say you're not capable of being that kind of player.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's obviously, like I said, he's been playing a long time in the NHL, and he's always come with a lot of tips and stuff like that. So it's good to have him there and just give me some advice about how I should play and what I should do.
One of the biggest offensive moments of your season was that goal. The next game was probably the biggest game of your season, and not necessarily because of how you played, but what happened. As it was on the Friday, the 15th of February, you played at home against Oklahoma City, and you weren't the only casualty in that game. There were multiple injuries. In fact, that weekend, the Stars, I believe, lost 4 defensemen during that weekend series. You missed the next 24 games due to injury. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened on the ice that led to the injury?
Yeah, I mean, my partner, I can't remember who it was, but just gave me a pass, a D-to-D pass, and then I was just gonna pass it up to the forward, and then one of their forwards just hit me in the head and hit me on my chin. So I think I bounced my head in the glass. And then I just changed right away. And when I was sitting down on the bench, I felt that it wasn't really, didn't feel quite normal. So I left the game and I had a concussion. So yeah, that wasn't really a highlight of my career, but I mean.
Tell me a little bit about what it was like going through that ordeal, because you didn't play a game again until the second to last game of the regular season on April 19th, and you didn't even finish that game. I imagine you experienced some pretty low moments during that stretch of time.
Yeah, that was definitely not the best part of my career. I mean, my concussion wasn't really that bad. It was more that I had some trouble with my vision after that. So I didn't feel comfortable out there. And when I played a game after, I don't know how many weeks it was, 5 or 6 weeks maybe, I just didn't feel comfortable, so I didn't want to risk anything, so I left the game.
Tell me what, or rather how difficult it was for you to feel pretty much healthy. You'd go out and skate a practice and feel pretty good one day, and then the next day I remember right towards the time you played against Houston in April, you went out for a morning or pregame skate and said you felt really good, and then you went out for warm-ups and felt horrible. And I don't know if it was the energy in the building for warm-ups or the music or what have you, but how frustrating was that, and how difficult was it for you to watch the team play in the playoffs and you physically not be able to play, even though you were traveling and trying to get back and healthy?
That was the most frustrating part, just being so close all the time. I was probably around 95% all the time, but I just never felt comfortable out there, and I just didn't want to risk that I got hit again and get another concussion. So that was the reason why I didn't play, and I don't want to play at 90% and be a bad player out there. I just want to give myself some justice, and I want to be a good player when I play. So yeah, that was really frustrating, and it was such a long time too, and just never got rid of it.
Now, I know you're feeling a lot better now. How long did it take into the summer before you started to really feel as though that had all cleared away?
It was basically 7 or 10 days after I got home to Sweden that I felt really good and just consistently good. Towards the end, when I played the Oklahoma series, I was actually I felt good too. Towards the end there, I started to feel that I was healthy.
A little frustrating. If the Stars had been able to go a little longer in the playoffs, you might have been back in the mix.
Exactly. But I mean, like I said, when I got home to Sweden and just relaxed and didn't think about it, it disappeared.
So now that you're back in Dallas and you've had quite a busy summer already, how much of a sense of relief is it for you to feel good when you go out and play on the ice?
Oh, it's really nice, and the best part is that I've been feeling good all summer, and haven't been distracted in my summer training. So my summer training has been really, really good, and I been on the ice almost the whole summer. So I'm feeling good out there. So that's a big relief, and I'm ready to start a new season here.
I was talking to your compatriot Christopher Nilstorp last week when he was getting ready for the start of the camp in Fort Worth, and he was texting me back saying that the summer in Sweden was the best it's been in a decade, and it made it really difficult to leave, although the hockey obviously he was excited to get the season going. How was it in Sweden that the summer was so good that it's better than the last 10 years?
Sometimes the summer in Sweden can be a little bit wet but this summer was great, and it was sunny all the time, just like in Texas. So yeah, it was great. It was a great summer, and yeah, it's going to be fun to start a new season.
I know we've talked about it before a little bit, but it had to be a really big help to you to have a guy like Christopher on the team, a fellow Swede, somebody who can speak the language, sort of a connection between home and your work. That must have made an amazing difference for you in terms of getting settled your first year, even though you got along with everybody, and I know it was a great group of players in the team cohesion, but he had to really help that transition for you.
Yeah, he did. I think we helped each other there. I mean, we basically just understand each other, and no one else understands us. So that's good. No, but it was great. It was great. Like you said, it's nice to have someone else that speaks your own language, and stuff like that. So it was really good.
Now you played. You have a very unique perspective because you played against him in the Elite Serien, which has now been rebranded as the SHL or Swedish Hockey League. What was it like playing against him? I mean, you probably knew of him way before he signed his first contract with Dallas a year ago.
Yeah. Obviously, I had no idea that he was going to sign. I mean, he was 27, 28 years old when he signed. And usually, guys in Sweden just go over if they're drafted. But he signed as a free agent, and he was one of the best goalies there, and he's a really good goalie. And I mean, it was great to have him on the team last year because he was so solid in there.
Was he the kind of guy when you were playing in Sweden that you didn't necessarily look forward to playing against because you knew how good he was and how hard it was going to be to beat him?
Yeah, I mean, the whole team, the team he played for was really good too. And I mean, we had Victor Fast that plays in Anaheim right now. We had him in our team, so I mean, there was a little bit of competition there between them.
Now, I'm not sure. I'm sure you've heard the news, but Christopher's old team is going to be playing in the AHL All-Star game in St. John's, Newfoundland this year against a group of AHL All-Stars. It's a new format that the league has never done before. Kind of interesting that that Sweden and the AHL now have another sort of combination.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there is a lot of young Swedish players that's going over to the AHL to try to make it to the NHL. So I don't know if Färjestad wanted to see how good the AHL really are, but it's a really good league, and so is the Swedish Hockey League. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
Tell me about Traverse City. You went up to Michigan as part of a very strong lineup of Dallas prospects and played in the NHL prospect tournament in Traverse City. You guys had a really solid third place finish, but I know there was some disappointment there because you guys wanted to win it all.
Yeah, you always want to win. I think we played really, really well in the tournament. It was just that first period against Detroit that caught us a little bit. We weren't really ready that first period, so we lost that game, and that's why we couldn't play the final. But I mean, overall, it was a great tournament for us.
What's your perception of the way that NHL training camp has gone in Dallas thus far? We talked about earlier. This is your first one. You've been to Frisco before. We had sort of a mini training camp last year when the lockout ended, coming out of a 3-3 and playing in Frisco on a Monday, Tuesday, which was probably not very easy for the players. But now that you've had a year under your belt, you have to feel much more comfortable going into this, your first training camp.
Yes, I do. Especially after a really good summer, it feels really, really good, and it's a good setup here, and I feel comfortable on the ice and I feel confident. So it's just a lot of fun right now.
Now, I know you didn't play in the game, the first preseason game on Sunday, but there's a bunch coming up, including one against the Florida Panthers on Wednesday, and then in San Antonio against Florida on Friday, and then some other games. There's even an off-site game in Oklahoma City. Are you itching to get your first NHL game under your belt, even if it is just a preseason game?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I want to play one of those preseason games, and if I get the chance, I'm just going to make the best of it.
Now, another of your fellow countrymen, and John Klingberg came over and played one playoff game and had a couple weeks of training with the Texas Stars last year. He played in that first game on Sunday for Dallas, but he is going back to play in Sweden. What's the difference between a guy like John going back to play for his Swedish team Frölunda and you coming here and playing in the AHL instead?
The reason why I wanted to go back was he was a little bit injured last year, and he just wants to feel really ready before he's coming over to North America. I mean, it's a big step moving away from your family and all that. But I mean, it depends on what type of player you are, how if you feel ready. It's all personal. I mean, you're obviously closer to the NHL if you play in the AHL with injuries and call-ups and stuff like that. But I mean, if he feels that he develops better in the Swedish league this year, I mean, that's good for him. So I mean, I can't really say what's best for either of us. But I mean, you gotta feel comfortable where you're playing.
Well, I think that brings up a really interesting point because we've been talking about hockey and how much of a hockey adjustment it was. But for you personally last year, from a cultural standpoint, from a language perspective, which although I admit you did very, very well, and I know that you have to be pretty proud of your English skills, which are fantastic, by the way. But just going through all that, getting to know a whole group of people, getting to know the American culture, the culinary differences. I'm sure it's not as easy to get Swedish food in Austin, Texas as it is to get it back home.
Oh, that's tough. No, it is a big difference. I mean, it's like you said, it's not just the hockey part, it's the social part too. I mean, it was good. We had a really good group of guys there and good coaches down there, and it was a really good setup down in Austin last year. So that really helped me a lot too. But I felt that I was ready to take the step last year, so that was good for me. But like I said before, I mean, if John feels that he needs another more year, why rush it? I mean, he's going to have a long career, so I think it's going to work out fine for him.
Well, you say that, and Christopher said he was sort of in the same boat. Didn't necessarily feel like he would have been ready to try to make that transition if he was your age, 21, 22, versus where he is now. And he doesn't know if you've been able to do that. So he said he was pretty impressed with the fact that you were able to handle this, being so far away from home and your family at such a young age.
Yeah, I mean that's a big it's a big step to take, and but I was ready for a new adventure, and I think it worked out pretty good. So I'm happy that I took that step.
I'm going to put you on the spot briefly here. What are some of the things, particularly, we'll go with food first. What are some of the best things about playing in Texas and being in the United States as far as food that you just don't get back in Sweden?
Well, the good thing is it's large portions here when you order food. That's I like that. In Sweden, you don't get as much, so that's a good thing.
From a cultural standpoint, I remember you and Taylor Vaz on the bus together last year quite a bit, watching a lot of Family Guy. Is that something that you weren't as exposed to in Sweden, or is it just that you saw so much more of it here?
No, I mean I've been watching it for a lot of years now, and I love that show. And finally, I found someone else who liked it, and you like it, by the way, too. So us three on the front of that bus watching Family Guy clips, that was great.
I don't know if you'll be in the same position this year because as a second-year guy, you get to move farther back. But being a rookie last year, did you get subjected to any practical jokes or any little bit of fun that the older guys would play on you?
Not that much, actually, if I remember right. I don't have any pranks right now, so...
So you sort of stayed under the radar a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
When you come into this coming season, feeling physically strong, do you have at all that little chip on your shoulder of frustration from last year? Because I remember, assistant coach Doug Lister saying to me that it was a real shame not only that you got injured, but because of how well you were playing at that time, you very easily could have been that guy that got the call up to play in Dallas and get your first couple of NHL games. Instead, Jamie Alexiak got a bunch of games. Jordy Ben went up there for a while. Do you sort of think of that as both a negative that you're frustrated you weren't able to do that, but a positive knowing that you were really close to being that guy?
You know what? I've been thinking about it that way. But I mean, it's a new year. I got to prove that I'm good again because I was gone for such a long time. So I mean, I have a lot to prove. I have a lot to prove this year. So I mean, I don't really think about it that way. I'm just gonna go out there and do my best. I don't really think about what I did last year. I mean, you can't do that because I mean, it just you gotta play well every game. So I'm just gonna go out there and do my best. I mean, I don't really think that much, if I'm gonna be honest with you.
So looking forward, you have to be confident that you know you can play at the AHL level, and it's got to be pretty exciting to think that you aren't that far away from some playing in the NHL.
No, I mean, of course, but I've been working out with the NHL players the whole summer. So I feel confident when I'm at that level and with the pace and everything. So it's just taking the next step and improve your game every day.
Now, being in Texas, you're in the Central Time Zone. I don't know if a lot of people realize that your family back in Sweden, it's the middle of the night, probably getting closer to being early morning. Do they actually stay up to listen to and watch any of your games?
No, the day after, actually. They are really gonna be up all night to see me play. They can watch it the day after.
Is there much in the way of post-game conversation? Do you ever call home at 10:30 at night Central Time and they're just getting up for morning coffee and you can tell them how the game went?
I usually call them in the morning when I'm the day after when I'm going to the practice or if it's back-to-back the pregame skates.
Tell me a little bit about, this is sort of our last thing here because we're going to be out of time and I know that things are going to get ramped up here. You just look at what's going forward with this Texas Stars team. Do you feel that with the group of guys that are coming back, with some of the prospects that can come into the team, and from everything you've seen, because you've had a first-hand perspective of all these players up in Dallas, that the organizational depth for the Stars, NHL, AHL, and beyond has just gotten better and better?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, there's great depth in goalie position. It's great depth in the defense position and the forward too, and center position too. So, I mean, this organization is doing pretty good and looks good for the future.
Patrik, we really appreciate you spending a little bit of your time. I know you're probably physically exhausted from training camps thus far. Hope to see you in a preseason game soon, and best of luck trying to lock up a spot in Dallas. If not, we'll look forward to having you here in Texas.
Thank you very much.
Patrik Nemeth joining us here for our final episode of the Summer with the Stars series. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Owen Newkirk, and we'll see you on the ice here at Cedar Park Center real soon. So long, everybody.